Yay! We're getting ready to start our What's in Your Grotto event, refrigerator edition. So please stand by if you're watching this on record. You might have to skip forward a little bit, but I pressed the record button, which is what's important. Um, okay, awesome. I'm going to admit folks in the waiting room. Um, welcome, folks joining in. I'm very excited to nerd out about cheese with you for about an hour. Um, Feel free if you want it. I We have about like 16 people that RSVP'd, but we'll see um how many end up actually joining for the live session. But I really appreciate all of your time coming in here today on a Sunday to chat cheese. It's really nice to connect with everyone. So if you feel like you want to turn on your camera, feel free to do that. We are recording this because we're going to send it as a follow-up for people. And yeah, hopefully you guys are eating something. Maybe, oh yeah, we could pose a question about like what cheese are you enjoying at this time? Like what's been exciting for you if you want to throw that in the chat while we're waiting. We'll probably give it a like uh 5 minutes past the hour just because technical difficulties. Ooh. Manchego. Awesome. Love it. It's classic. Yeah, I got two grottos behind me today because was documenting a lot of cheese in the grottos. So, but welcome, Phil and Liz. So you guys just joined. We're just waiting a few moments or a few minutes uh,
Great.
to get started. But uh, just ask the question in the chat. What if there's a cheese you're enjoying these days? No pressure to.
I just had a really nice Stilton from Wisconsin, but I can't remember the brand.
Cool.
It was,
Stilton
oh, no, no,
style.
I take that back. It was an American trained cheesemaker who went back to make it in England.
Okay, yeah. I wonder, like, now I really want to know who that is.
Okay, well, if I find out, I'll let you know. It
Yeah,
was really delightful.
I know. I'm like, Kerry and I, can we like play like to try to do process of elimination or something on that? Um, yeah.
So it's made in England by an American cheesemaker.
Correct.
Okay.
He decided he wanted to make Stilton, so he moved to Stilton.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. And he's making a very good one, so I was very happy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I definitely had that fantasy. Um, yeah, I mean, I made cheese in France for a while and definitely had a fantasy of like, what if I just stay here? Like, what would my life be if I just did that? Probably not bad. Just probably wouldn't be that bad. But yeah, I was young at the time. I like just turned 21, so I think I was just like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But should have done it. Just should have done it. Well, is really cool. Well, we're gonna talk about like I have one blue cheese that I've stored in the grotto. It's like a unique kind of blue because it's got blue on the exterior of the like in the rind development versus the interior, which you don't see very often. People using blue, like intentionally using blue on the outside. So, um, cool. I don't know if anyone else has any cheesy thoughts while we wait a couple more minutes. Also, if you want to say ping in the chat like where you're from, it's always kind of cool. Or like I feel like people are always like from all over the country with Cheese Grotto because we're online. It's always cool to see where people are from. But
Well, I'm in Minnesota.
yes, excellent. Cool.
Anyone else is from my neck of the woods, you realized it was 90 one day and then 50 the next.
Oh yeah. It's just like the Midwest, right? That's just how it is. It's like very confusing, weather-wise. Cool. South Coast area, Massachusetts. That sounds beautiful. Just
I
Get a
spent
lot
half
of,
my, go ahead.
you say you get a lot of like, what is it? The Vermont cheeses are pretty easy to get around here. So, like
yeah.
Jasper Hill's pretty common and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's I don't know, that's the beauty of New England. I feel like the that proximity, like being close to all these makers is so amazing. Um yeah, definitely. I mean, New York State obviously has cheesemakers, but it's not as like dense.
Yeah, I spent half my time in Virginia, kind of on the coast of the Chesapeake, and I'm disappointed. It doesn't seem there are very many cheesemakers out here. In the other half in the Pacific Northwest, and we've got some good ones out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. Washington State has
Yeah,
more I know about. It's like a very large volume. I want to um try sourcing more from the West Coast. It sometimes gets more challenging, like for our subscription that we do, but sometimes it's more challenging with the small makers. Like you have to wait till the colder months when so they don't have to ship all the way across the country. But yeah. Um,
it's a bit disappointing here because at home we've got a close grocery store that's got really good cheese selection, and out here it's a little tough to find good cheese.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of room for it to develop for sure, in terms of accessibility. And it's like there's so many small makers, but it's hard. The distribution is so hard for them. It's tricky, but
I
cool.
guess
Well,
if you'd like pimento cheese, there's lots around here, but that was about it.
yeah. You know, summer's coming. You gotta make the like, there's a lot you can do with it in summer, which is good.
Yeah.
Or maybe summer's here now, officially. Um, But cool. Yeah. So I think we'll just get us started since we're 5 minutes past and appreciate everyone's time. We're going to do like a presentation for about like 30 minutes or so. But obviously we're a small crew. So if you want to ask a question, like don't be shy if you feel like unmuting and asking a question. And then we'll just open it up for like talk and questions after that. So that, yeah, we don't. The dangerous thing about people who work in the cheese industry is you can keep going. You can keep talking about it. That's we always have to rein ourselves in. So, but yeah,
100%, 100%.
yeah. It's like I've definitely heard feedback from other things where it's like that was interesting, but oh my God, like how we are talking like it's like deep dive like for over an hour. I find actually Jasper Hill does that with a lot of their presentations. It's like uh yeah, they really go hard. So yeah, I am sharing my screen already, right? You guys see it or no?
No,
Okay,
no.
let me share now. Perfect.
It's there.
Yay. Okay, you can see this. So, so yes, thank you so much for joining today. We love these. We need to do them more often. I always say that, and then like 3 months go by, but we will definitely keep doing these because the main thing that is really that there's so much space for is education about real cheese, like how cheese is actually made, how it behaves. I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering around like cheese and mold and all, there's a lot there. So it's like a lot to unpack, especially online. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. So it's really nice to just like share our thoughts being in the cheese industry. So yeah, so my name is Jessica Sennett. I am the founder of Cheese Grotto. I started my company back in 2016 after working in the specialty cheese industry for over a decade. So my background is both in cheese making in France, as I mentioned, but then also I manage a cheese making operation in Walla Walla area in Washington State for a bit. They no longer they shut down actually like last year, but as a small goat and sheep creamery called the Montier Fromagerie. But all of my learning has been hands-on through cheese making and through working at different various cheese shops. Worked at Cowgirl Creamery. I'm from San Francisco originally, at a cheese shop, then moved to the East Coast after my cheese making foray and worked at Formaggio Kitchen, which John probably knows about being in Massachusetts, but it's a really it's an institution of a cheese shop as well. They have underground cellars, and that was something that I helped them renovate the cellars where they were storing all their wheels of cheese, and then moved on to help open it Bedford Cheese Shop in Manhattan, Gramercy Park. And then, yeah, decided to launch the Cheese Grotto because I found that the top question I always got asked is what's the best way to store specialty cheese? And there's a lot of room still to find, to have a better solution. We have cheese paper that's wrapped that is like a breathable cheese paper, and the Grotto does a lot of similar functions to that, where it's a humidor with a humidifying brick in the base and breathable material, breathable back panel. So it creates this nice breathable yet humid microclimate that allows cheeses to stay healthy and not just kind of like suffocate under some kind of wrap. So cheese paper does a lot of the same things, but with the Grotto, you don't have to wrap the cheeses. You can, if you're being more European, we're doing refrigerator edition during the colder months of the year. I have my Grotto out on the counter because it's just like ready to serve, and the recommendation is just under 70 degrees, and you want to enjoy cheeses more quickly because temperature is a big factor in the development of cheese. So the warmer it is, the faster it will ferment and ripen. So we always recommend, I mean, granted, I've had things in the Grotto on my counter for longer than a week, but we always kind of safeguard and say, that's the best for kind of more general rule of thumb for all aged cheeses. Softer ones are going to ripen faster than firmer ones. So, but in the refrigerator, that's actually where we've found some great prolonging of shelf life, because you also have the temperature control of the refrigerator. So once it gets, I live in Brooklyn, New York, and it gets balmy. It's balmy today already up in my second story apartment. We don't have central air, so that goes into the refrigerator to help to prolong shelf life for a few months. And then I usually take it back out. And then, yeah, I'm really excited, to have Kerry, Jerred here. You might sometimes chat with her for questions about the Grotto. She helps out with some customer service. She also is a certified cheese professional, so she has the sommelier grade of for a cheese expert, which is awesome. That's an exam that you can go study and go through. Oh yeah, look at her her chef's coat right there. And she's actually one of our first customers ever, which is also an amazing story. So back in 2016, Kerry wrote a blog post about that recently. So Kerry and I decided that like we would just do an exploration of storing different cheeses, showing kind of some of the variables in what how cheese behaves and what you might expect from storing cheese, to try to demystify that a little bit more for people.
Okay.
And yeah, and want to mention that all the grottos are American made. So we do this, we're a very small company. So we produce these in small runs in New York State. And the bricks themselves are made like in Ohio. So yes, why don't we just get into this real quick? Mostly, has anyone here gone to, I'm just curious, like the crew we have today, like, have you all been to, sounds like maybe more avid cheese eaters, gone to farms, maybe experienced some cheese making?
Not too much direct. I think I've been to a couple small farms just selling cheese like on the roadside, but that's about not seeing it made.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really like, I don't know, I feel like it is a very eye-opening experience, like to see like it's not as easy sometimes to do because it's a little off limits. I feel like it's gotten more strict. But yeah, I always feel like if you do have a cheesemaker, you can ping and be like, is there a day I can just come by and like put on the boots and the hat and the coat and come in and see how this works. It's pretty like it really does open your eyes to the process. But the first part that we have here, of course, is it starts and it ends it starts at the pasture and then ends at your table. So not all cheesemakers are pasture feeding their herd. You have some that are not grazing as frequently as others. This is a photo from Uplands Cheese in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. And they're super like into being seasonal and like grass-fed, basically just doing a lot of rotational grazing, moving the herd so it has low impact on the soil. I always love these makers. But really the feed and the breed of the dairy animal makes a huge impact on the final like chemistry of the cheese. So the chemistry of the milk, because you'll have different protein to butter fat ratios. You'll have different kind of natural microflora like through this process if you're making raw milk. Even from like from the milking process, you can get some natural microflora. And yeah, and then the feed can affect flavor. It can affect the protein and the butter fat count as well. So really, it all starts with that feed. But once you get the milk and the cheesemaker will determine, the chemistry of what they're looking for. Some more than others are more scientific about it, in terms of, okay, we want this blend of our herd, we want like this different blend of breeds, and we're going to feed them this exact thing to get this result every single time. Whereas usually smaller cheesemakers don't have like the team or the bandwidth like to do that. They just know I want like high butter fat, so maybe I'm gonna just use like Jersey, or I want really strong protein, so I'm gonna use Holsteins. So those things it does vary like how much people think about that. But once you have the milk, it is going to be inoculated with cultures, edible cultures and molds. Um, so the molds are inoculated for natural rinded cheeses, cheeses that develop a rind on the exterior. The cultures, molds could also be, of course, like in blue cheese, where that's a mold that's inoculated into the paste of the cheese as well. Whereas the cultures are like different bacteria, edible starter bacterias that contribute to the flavor profile as well as the acidity level of the milk. And in addition to that, you have rennet, the enzyme, which is added, which the enzyme is what is going to take all of those floating casein protein in the milk, bind it together with all the butter fat, and push out the water. So you basically have the whey, which is predominantly water with whey protein and whey minerals, and then the curd, which is like butter fat, protein, vitamins, and minerals that go with the curd, like they're the non-polar charged items in the milk. Um, so that kind of, naturally, even before anything, there's mold involved in all natural rind cheeses. And there's good edible bacteria that create the flavor that you love, just like yogurt for cheeses. So when the cheese gets stored after the cheese has been cut and sometimes heated and cooked, we'll get into this a little bit more with one of the cheeses, then strained. You will get, a formed kind of like just like white, like white wheel or block of cheese. And really where the transformation happens is during the aging process. So you'll see here in this photo that these cheeses have a natural rind on them that developed in the cave. The cave is got a lot of similarities to the grotto because it's a higher humid environment. It is breathable, and it's made, a lot of the traditional ones are made with wood as shelving, and that helps to cultivate the right types of microbial activity that then develop a rind. But the cheese must be maintained, and this is where you get into cheeses. You're like, why does this cost like $30, $40 a pound? Is because they have to go in there and they have to flip. They have to flip the wheels. They have to maintain the wheels. They have to brush the wheels. They sometimes will wash them with a little bit of brine solution to control growth. But they want the development. They want the development because they want to have an amazing flavor on the interior of the cheese. And there's so much of a symbiotic relationship between how the rind develops and the interior flavor, that final flavor profile. So this is like, yeah, like Kerry, maybe if you want to chat like for a sec about this graph that you found about kind of everything that you can potentially, not, this is not everything you could find on natural rind cheese, but some, I would say, categories.
No, exactly. It's a very complicated piece of paper there, and there's lots of stuff. It is a little forest that happens on cheeses. Natural rind. Natural rind cheeses are ones that are not covered in like wax or something else. That is, they develop their own rind. They go in essentially as blank wheels of white stuff, and then they change quite a bit over time in the cave. And that depends on what's going on inside the cheese, the microflora that's come from the milk itself, as well as what's been happening on those cave walls. So, if there's things growing on those cave walls, it's jumping on the cheese, including spiders. Don't want to mess you up, but yeah, yes.
Oh, the mites, the little mites.
And the mites, yes.
It's a whole ecosystem. It's a whole ecosystem.
Right. It's a whole ecosystem, and it's like it also has some succession. So there's different things that happen over time on that wheel of cheese. The Staphylococcus down in the left-hand corner, a friend that makes cheese in southern Minnesota, and she's the largest sheep farmer in the U.S. And just started discovering this orange mold on some of her, I think it was the Frisago, and it's Shepherd's Way is the name of the creamery. And she got freaked out at first, and then lo and behold, she found out that this is a mold that sometimes happens, and it's cool. It's a good thing. So this cheeses aren't inside. They're not going to be what they are inside without what's going on the outside. They'd be flavorless and tasteless. So I just think it's really cool to see how things change and develop. And I am one of those people that smells my food, so I smell it as it goes along to see, because people always ask me. I am a certified cheese professional, but I used to monger quite a bit. They ask me, number one, can I eat the rind? Number two, how do I know which mold to cut off? And I usually say, if it's something that like on your skin would concern you, like if it's a bright pink or red dot on a cut side of a cheese, it's probably something you want to cut away. But otherwise, it's probably not. And use your nose. If it's a super ammoniated, like beyond, can't even get it close to you, ammoniated, and that's typically a brie. That's typically a soft grinded cheese, soft ripened cheese. Super ammoniated that doesn't go away in the nose or in the flavor, then it's gone beyond. Like the Gouda I have in my grotto, I sometimes smell dirty dish rag on it. I think we all know what dirty dish rag smells like. I don't know what that mold is, but I cut it off because I don't want to eat a dirty
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But it's a whole forest. It's like, if we were Ant-Man and living on a rind of a cheese, it would be a total, oh my gosh, I think I just came up with a new Marvel movie.
Yes, I like this. The next collaboration.
So since it says succession time, does that kind of mean that the yeast takes over from the Staphylococcus and kind of
Uh,
out colonizes it, and then the acetobacteria does the same?
yeah, they kind of, but they also work together as they're going along. And quite often this will happen as a result of what is on that rind as far as carbohydrates and sugars, because those different staphylococcus and yeast and everything are there because they're eating it. And they wouldn't grow unless there was the carbohydrates and sugars on that rind. So it is like a forest, it starts out with, a little clover on the ground and then a couple of buckthorn grow. I don't know if you guys did buckthorn. And then look at that, the popples are growing now, and now pine trees and oak trees.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, so just to keep the pace on our, because as I always feel like I could spend like 30 minutes on one slide. But so merely the next step is once you have that developed rind and that developed cheese, what happens is the cheesemaker will decide, usually they do sample testing, they'll do core testing, like with like kind of like an apple core, it's like a cheese iron. They'll test samples of the cheeses and decide, okay, this batch is ready. It's a flavor profile we want. We've aged it enough, and we're going to send it out to market. And so the next step for the cheese is that it will then usually go to, it might go to supermarket, might go to a nice cheese shop with a cheese counter. And some of the things that we don't see behind the scenes is even, okay, after it leaves the cheesemaker, it still needs care and it still needs maintenance. When you go to a great cheese shop, you don't really see any of this. You just see pristine wall of cheese stacked, wrapped in plastic. And really, as both Kerry and I have worked in cheese shops, and there is a regimen where, you unwrap the cheeses that are cut halves, you scrape off the face of them to keep it fresh, you rewrap, and you're ready to go. And depending on how militant the cheese shop is, you could be doing this like once a day. That's like some like Formaggio is like some place that's pretty militant about it. Once a week for like a deep, kind of just like go through the entire cheese display. And that's just because, these cheeses are still alive, they're still fermenting. And it's something that, like, one of the processes which we'll show in some images is facing, which is that scraping that I was telling you about, where you might see, a modeling of white that forms or a little bit of blue that forms on the paste of a cheese, which is something that cheesemongers deal with all the time. The reason they don't seal everything in vacuum seal is because it would completely kill the rinds. It would completely kill the cheese. So it does require, when you have some exposure to oxygen, you do have a little bit of this maintenance that needs to happen. And it's totally normal, totally natural if you see something like that happen. So yeah, we kind of talked about this a little bit already with maintaining healthy microbes so the cheese isn't killed in plastic wrap. This was something that we tested with cheese experts and dairy scientists. So I was in a accelerator program with the biggest dairy cooperative in Canada, and we tested their cheese paper and my grotto in their refrigerator, or sorry, in their refrigeration in their dairy lab, same batch of camembert, and saw like what happened to shelf life. And they were very skeptical that the cheese grotto would extend the life past their own like proprietary cheese paper. But what they actually found is that it did extend it like an additional week past. Honestly, I think we had to end the test, so we didn't get to go farther than that. But like how they measured it was by proteolytic breakdown. So the enzymatic breakdown of the cheese, of the camembert, and how quickly did that happen. And it was slowed down by the grotto. And the main reason for that is because it wasn't wrapped. And because it had more exposure to air, it had a little bit of curing to it that made it so it didn't trap moisture and like continue to break down faster. And basically, that's really the main difference that you have with the cheese grotto and being able to store things like that. We did similar tests with Max McCallman, who's a cheese expert. He's like one of the OG cheese experts from Manhattan. Helped open a few different cheese programs before it was a thing. So he was gracious to offer some of his time and do some testing that was very similar to that. But yeah, so this is just a little bit of what I was talking about, really, that we found like 3 times more than cheese paper from the cheese expert tests. The dairy ones, it was actually, it was like one additional week of over a 4 week test. So theirs and within 3 weeks was like broken down to the point that they would recommend eating it. And then it was 4 weeks for the grotto. So but yeah, Tupperware's got kind of some issues too, where it traps moisture as well. So this we're gonna get into right here. Like, I got 2 videos going on. 2 videos at the same time here. Sorry, guys. Trying to not. So mostly the first one I wanted to show you that definitely when you store the grotto in the fridge, you're gonna get that like condensation. It looks like kind of like a steam room or like a spa because it is so humid in there. And I put in the grotto. Sorry, that I put in the grotto those 2 cheeses. So the mountaintop cheese is that blue and white bloomy rind cheese that's ripened on the exterior that I was talking about. It's a goat milk cheese from Firefly Farms in Accident, Maryland. And then the back cheese is an Alpine style from New Jersey. So you'll see, this is like a Instagram reel, so it goes pretty fast because, people on the internet don't have fast attention spans, but mostly you'll see that the bloom like continued to develop in the grotto because it is like a humid environment. And so by week 3, I decided to pat it down a little bit just to control some of that like bloom. And you see that there's a little bit of that bloom that happened on the board itself, which I left there because it's just like a little microclimate for the cheese that's in there. And it's just like right underneath it. So that was like one of the top transformations that you'll see with like bloomy rinds in general. You might see some additional bloom that happens in there because it's the conditions are nice for it to continue to develop a little. So and keep the cheese fresh. So that's what happened with that one. With the Havila, we did see over some time. So this was okay. It looks more yellow. That's just because I took the photo more direct sunlight, and then the other ones weren't as direct, so the color didn't actually change. But mostly this was April 16th. You can actually see even here, there's a little bit of growth right in this area. Like when I put the wedge in, by April 25th, there was like a little bit more right there. Like you'll see there's a little bit more development. Hopefully this is close enough for people. By April 30th, there was like more white that started right on that tip. And I just ended up scraping that off. So that was like after, yeah, about after 2 weeks, I noticed a little bit of that bloom coming in. But some of it was like already naturally there. And then it's also in close proximity to a bloomy rind cheese. So you can sometimes have a little bit of the bloom that likes to jump in the grotto. So that can happen. You'll notice here on the right that April 19th, I took a photo of the rind. So that was like 3 days in. And then by May 17th, look how much more fuzzy that it got. So it did have some development that happened like along the rind as well. Then you'll notice here, this is the facing that we're talking about. So there's a little bit more like mold growth along the rind as well. So I did a little bit of like a facing, which is basically just scraping the exterior for like a little bit of maintenance. And yeah, after we did that, it's good to go. We could place it back into the grotto. By May 17th, this was a photo I got yesterday of the cheese. So these are the cut pieces that I served, and then my husband ate almost this entire thing. So I have like one other, I'm like like one little piece left of that to document, but you'll see that there was more crystallization that ended up happening on the exterior of the cheese, which was really interesting over that month's time frame in the grotto. So there's a little bit more density that happened, which happens with cheeses, the longer they age, if they lose a little bit of moisture, just because it's a cut surface, you might get like some more crystallization that happens. That's like protein clusters. And in general, the flavor got more umami, more savory, more brothy. And really a lot of times when cheeses age, they will have that. I also noticed with the Havila, the Alpine cheese, it had like more herbaceousness to it. Like I have these herb crackers from our subscription box for May, and it was like they boing, they like really paired with each other like more strongly than before. And then yeah, the rind of the mountaintop had more minerality to it, which makes sense because you had more of this like blue and white bloom that was developing on the exterior, as well as like having a little bit more like savory characteristics to it. Um, and then I did a few other ones in the Grotto Fresco over time. So the first one was the May 1st was a tasting uh, that I had, a virtual tasting. So I took some photos. This is Mountaineer, which is actually like, oh, I see how it works. If I hover, it stops. It's actually um, like an Alpine style, but it was like one of the older wheels from like the previous season because they only make the Mountaineer during the summer months. So it was a little bit more on the funky side. And then I had a cheddar in there, Prairie Breeze cheddar. If you haven't had that cheddar, it's really freaking good. And some petite breakfast cheese, which I don't normally put a fresh cheese in there, but I was like, I'm just gonna put it in here and see how it performs. But yeah, so May 11th, then we had I added parm in there at some point. So this one's not as scientific. I added some parm in there. Parm you could like literally have in the grotto forever because it's just like so dense that especially the larger pieces, it like nothing happens to it. It's pretty awesome. But the one in the back is the Prairie Breeze cheddar, the Petit Camembert, and the Mountaineer. You'll notice like the smaller the piece of cheese, that the more water might evaporate from the surface just because it has more exposure to oxygen. And then May 16th, I noticed two dots of white bloom on this older wheel of Mountaineer that I had in there. So easily scraped off, but or just like wiped off basically. But that so it took like over 2 weeks for something to happen to one of the cheeses in there. So yeah, and then the parm looks like nothing happened. So um so yeah, so that was my grotto experiment or just documentation over the last like last month. I wanted to just I don't know if you guys have questions, but Kerry has three cheeses that she also stored in the grotto and some other little tidbits and maintenance tips too. So
Yeah, so I didn't realize that the kitchen atmosphere that I have is much different than yours, Jessica. Because we live in a bermed house, which basically the north wall is in a hillside. So it's slab on grade. So our ground is cool and the whole atmosphere of the house is a little bit more moist. So that makes a big difference also. So, but this is in the refrigerator version, but I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, so this is Greta. I have had Greta since 2016. I named her Greta the Grotto. And I wood burned her name on the back.
I wish, oh yeah, we'll spotlight that later.
So she's 2016. We didn't realize that until we're kind of a ways into this relationship. I actually do have a separate business. My husband is a dairy nutritionist, so he's been on farms in more than 30 countries in the world. So he knows the animal side big time, and I know the cheese side. So the other thing I wanted to mention real quick was this is what you were talking about. This is a tool you were talking about. It's a trier. And so this is one way that they test the ripeness of the cheese is by going into the side of the wheel, turning, and then pulling out a core. Smelling, tasting along here. and then putting the outside edge of that core back into the cheese, and it will continue to age. So the 3 cheeses I had in mind were Holy Trinity Gouda from Marika Gouda in Thorpe, Wisconsin. And Marika just earned she just achieved Master Cheesemaker, which takes about 10 to 15 years to get there in Wisconsin. Holy Trinity has peppers, onions, and celery in it, and that's going to behave a lot differently in your grotto. And the second one is a Riojana. It's a very soft cheese. It is definitely squishy. And then Tipsy Tilsiter, which is a cheese. Yes, here in Minnesota, we do have cheesemakers. This is Redhead Creamery. They're out in Bruton, Minnesota. Farmstead Creamery. So the animals are in the same locations where the cheese is being made. The nice thing about Redhead, and you might find this with some other cheese producers, is that they have viewing windows. So you get a lot more education by being able to visit the animals and see the cheese being made. And they also just put in a speakeasy and distillery and a cocktail room because they're distilling way into clear spirits. So talk about nose to tail. Go ahead, next one. So this is just the first day. You could see in the previous one that Tipsy was vacuum sealed. So is I'm just going to call it Rioja because that's the one that's bopping in my head. And the Holy Trinity was not. I actually cut that off the wheel myself. Okay. So on the left-hand side, this was after a day or so, you can see the little crystals on the surface. It's actually not really on the surface. I'm starting to think they might be more tyrosine because they're not like protruding from the surface. They're kind of sitting just underneath. And those we call cheese diamonds. Those are the crunchy things. Calcium lactate and tyrosine crystals are just concentrations of proteins that a lot of folks think of as salt because it has the same kind of crunch. Marika is there in the middle, or Holy Trinity is there in the middle, and then the right. And you can see this, like I said, I had cut this off the wheel. It had been hanging out a little while before it went in the grotto. And actually some cheeses with inclusions like this will start to show some more movement, some more action. The interesting thing is, as aromatic, this cheese tastes like dinner in a bite. As aromatic and as flavorful as this cheese is, it did not jump to the other two. I had them on separate shelves, but still, cheeses do like to share. I trimmed off the very tip of it because I wanted the best bite. That was not going to be the best bite. It's a little bit thin. And you certainly can do that. The very center of the wheel typically is the best taste of that wheel. So there's a tiny bit of surface mold. You can see in the right-hand one, and they're protruding from the surface. So that's a little bit different than the crystals in appearance. Okay.
Oh yeah, also wanted to point out that there was you noticed some kind of discoloration in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like even on day one, which is interesting. Which we don't know exactly what that is. Do we? We don't, I don't think. But
I don't think the cat got to it though.
Yeah. It was just, it has a tendency to kind of evolve differently. Yeah.
And you can see it's a little bit in the center one on the 5th day there. It's just because of the picture that I took on the top of the photo that's closest to the rind. It's a little bit darker. And so Goudas will do that. As they age, they darken from the rind in. And then on the very right-hand one, I'm facing that cheese, and I didn't notice until I watched it later that there's a cat hair in there.
Yeah, no.
Because we live in a house, and that's where Greta lives. She lives in a house with our 5 cats. So it happens. Pet owners know how to avoid. So this one on the left it shows a little bit better. The color changed from the rind to the interior paste. And I said Goudas are like this. And since it's a Gouda, and I removed the Paracoat, which traditionally has been wax in Goudas. Now they use something called Paracoat that's brushed on. It's similar to Elmer's glue, actually, and it's designed to keep the humidity coming and going from that cheese under control. So when I remove it, it's going to dry a little faster. And it's not surprising that happens. And I
So
thought,
would you normally remove the waxes then when you put them in the grotto?
no, I did that because I was doing an event and I needed to remove the
Got you.
coating from the outside. And Marika, oh my gosh, that stuff sticks on there like, oh wow. But yeah, usually no, I would leave it on. It's part of the cheese for sure. This just happens to be the wedge that I had. And I thought the one picture on the right is a good example of what you saw before in the video that I spaced the very top of that piece of cheese. And so those are just like little shreds and bits that came as part of the facing. But down below, there's a little bit difference of appearance there, and it's actually starting to pink a little bit. So that's more like what surface mold would look like. And again, this is normal, especially with this kind of cheese with things in it. And then the third one, Tipsy Tilsiter. Tipsy Tilsiter is a Tilsit cheese, Tilsit style cheese. This is the one that's made in Minnesota. And it's been washed in milk and honey ciders. They're a hard cider producer here. They're floral or flora hard cider. So basically what they do is they literally take a rag and wash the wheels. So what that does is it creates an environment for certain bacteria to grow because it's adding sugars and carbohydrates for the certain bacteria, molds, and yeast to grow. And that's what makes that wheel from outside in. So that cheese, it doesn't taste sweet. It doesn't taste like cider. Basically, it's just creating an environment to grow what the cheesemaker wants on the rind of that cheese. You can see a slight bit of development in the white, and that's going to be almost desirable on that rind because it is still busy, it is still active, it's still moving, it's still growing. And better pictures of the calcium lactate or tyrosine crystals are cheese diamonds. And this appearance of this wedge is interesting. You can see that it was vacuum sealed as a softer cheese, a softer bodied cheese, because it literally wrinkled. And whatever, that's fine. And absolutely nothing happened to this cheese. It was kept in perfect condition, even being a real soft bodied cheese. This is definitely one that would melt nicely. And is squishable. It's probably a similar consistency to Havarti. No rind, completely rindless. It was vacuum sealed when it got to me. It's from Spain, so it's had some travel time also. And the grotto kept it perfectly. So this is, I just popped this in as a cheese make process. And this is the life of Tipsy Tilsiter. So the milk comes right from the milk house into the creamery. They're about 50 feet away from each other. That's the upper left-hand corner picture. So it comes right into the creamery via pipeline underground and into the pasteurizer, then into the vat where rennets and culture are added. You can see in that third from the left, it looks like a big vat of white jello. So the rennet has set. And then it gets cut, and that's me on the right, stirring the curd, keeping it moving so they don't clump back together. We want separate curds. This was Little Lucy that I was helping to make. It's a brie style cheese, a little different than Tipsy Tilsiter. Tipsy on the lower left gets milled into curds, and then the curds get packed into the forms. And that's actually their make room. It's a gorgeous view, the second from the left. And then those are wheels of Tipsy at about their prime, according to the cheesemaker. And that's the cheesemaker on the right. And under that hairnet, she is redheaded.
All makes sense.
So I did kind of focus on the life of Tipsy here, just because I did see some crystal formation that always excites me. And I thought that it, not on top of the cheese diamonds, which added the crunch and everything, the texture was denser and more crumbly, which the term for that is friable. The more crumbly it is, it's more friable, which is like not intuitive. And the flavor is richer, more caramel notes to it because tipsy can be kind of mild on the palate and is especially mild when it's served, eaten refrigerated. As it warms up, it's hugely different, hugely different. I think that's it.
Yeah. So, this is
Any
kind of
questions?
yay. Thank you. So this is really kind of some of our main takeaways when we were building out this presentation, but really that, the grotto, of course, it's a storage piece, but it also invites you to become an affineur of your wedges and wheels and to really invite you to learn more about the complex food and not have so much fear about it. Just but my goal in general with food that's made naturally is how do we have less fear about it? But it's something it brings joy, right? It brings joy to see these differences and to taste the differences that evolve over time as well. So but yeah, like some of the kind of main things that really are kind of like rules of thumbs is usually as a cheese ages. This might be with the exception of like soft ripened camemberts, which can get softer as they break down. But any of these denser cheeses will become denser in flavor and texture over time when stored more naturally and not in vacuum seal. That's where you'll see that crystallization potentially happen and like more intense flavor develop in the cheese itself. With all naturally made cheese, especially those with the rind, that sometimes they will require a little bit of care. And they still have weeks and weeks and weeks of life on them. But you just might have to, everyone just check in on them every once in a while, make sure that they're doing good, just how they would at a cheese shop and just how they would at a cheese maker. And the smaller the piece of cheese that you have, you could re-soak the brick like a million times, but you will still see like some variation as it's like if it's like a piece over time, it will loosen.
You happy?
And it'll just become like a little bit more of like, if you forgot about a tiny piece for a long time, you just like use it to grate over something is usually how I would recommend using it. Like if it was like months or something. But and then yeah, some cheeses prefer a little bit more higher humidity than others. So that's also part of just checking in, seeing how the rinds are doing, how the paste is doing. And if you want to give it a little bit of a resubmerge every once in a while, that brick, it can be helpful. So but yeah, so I'm gonna stop share on this. And okay, we tried really hard to keep it to 30 minutes, but I know that it's 4:50 right now. But we're down to answer any and all questions as long as you want. So
I don't think it's Grotto specifically related, but I'll get that I think there's like a Beamster Exo real aged Gouda. And I always feel wasteful cutting off the rind, but I usually just go to where the discolor is because it's always flavorless. Is that pretty common?
You're saying the rind is flavorless?
Well, it's like, yeah, if I get like the real, like the 24-month aged cheese, it's usually like if I try to like gnaw on the rind, it's like all the flavor got absorbed into the middle. It tastes to me at least.
It's extremely common. Yeah. The best, especially in that case, the best bite is going to be the center of the wheel. And I think that's kind of a general opinion. It's just the way that the cheese ages. It's not wasteful. It's what is done.
Yeah. All the flavor, I think, just got absorbed in the middle is what I tell myself.
Yeah, well, you can use it in different ways other than, take off the rind and you could, pop it into soups or things like that. Sometimes I shred it way down to the very edge of that just so I can, use some of it on a salad or something. But no, it's just very common that it's like that. For some reason, the Goudas are just more flavorful. Now take it out of the fridge well before, you know that?
Like, was it the hour, like a room temperature?
Yeah. And if you really want to nerd out on your curds, try a wedge right out of the fridge and try a wedge that's been, brought up to room for about an hour.
Yeah, I usually don't have the patience. I try to like put it out, and then I got cats in the house too, so it's like maybe I like I put like a little cover over it, but then it's like I'm just gonna eat it right now. But
That was going to be part of my question for Jessica is how often do you have cheeses in there for 30 days? That seems, I don't think any of mine would last in there 30 days before I ate them all.
Yeah, that's I always talk to Kerry because my husband is like a cheese fiend, and so I like literally have like a separate fridge when I'm doing this experiment, and I'm like, do not go in there. Like I need to test like how this looks. Uh but yeah, no, it's usually no. And like that was part of the thing where, we just wanted to do this for best practices and to like see to continue to like explore like what the behavior of the cheese is like the longer you have like of course if you wanted to keep a cheese for like you saw the parm wedge is like pretty big that I have it in still right now. It's like little big guy. And I just feel like, isn't it everyone's fantasy to just have like a giant hunk of Parmigiano Reggiano like at all times, like uh, ready to go, like on everything. Um, but so that's like a situation where like I might be holding on to that for, more than a month. Like it might be in there for a while. And it will perform well because it is dense and it's so for cheeses that are so developed, like I mean, this cheese has been made since the Roman Empire, and the more that you age cheese, the more that you make a cheese for every year that you add more complexity, more of a terroir to the cheese. And so this cheese is like so like you cannot mess with it. You know what I mean? Like it's got such a full characteristic and profile. I find that sometimes with like the young, like things that are maybe sold too young or like might have like we did one there was one like Eidolon cheese like this like bloomy rind cheese that was like sold a little too young to me and like the rind hadn't fully developed and so because of that we noticed some additional things that started to develop on the rind and it was like oh yeah we definitely need to like maintain this because it's like not it wasn't really so there's like there's some occasions where it can happen and I think just yeah for due diligence, but I do agree like that it's very rare. Like and in most cultures it's like and the most ideal you go to the store, you buy what you need, you enjoy it for the week or two, you go back, and you're not always bulk buying like a giant block of cheese to
So
sustain.
I am more of a bulk buyer, and that was going to be my next question is that so I only have one grotto and I really like my cheese room temperature. I don't think an hour is enough for a cheese to develop out of the two. So I'm planning on keeping my grotto probably out of the fridge unless it gets very hot. Um, and so could I like cut off a chunk of what I'm probably going to eat in the next week or 10 days and then just keep the rest in cheese paper in the fridge and then just kind of keep refilling it that way? Is that the right way to think of it?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great. I mean, yeah, like I'm someone, as I was mentioning, that like pushes the the limits that we recommend. But we kind of do it more as like quality control, like because as you can see, cheeses can behave differently and do different things. So but yeah, like I would say like, right now, I mean, don't feel bad for me, but right, my apartment is like, 80 degrees or something. Um, yeah, it's a lovely apartment, but like during the, New York and all that and second story and brick house,
Yeah.
it's just how it is. So it's like I like mostly I just have, I still will have one out and enjoy cheese within the week of what I know I'm gonna have in there and then just keep like the rest because I get samples sent to me. I get, like a whole, wheel or something. And I'm like, I'm not gonna put that all out at once. So yeah, that would be a good way to do it.
Okay. So after I used it the first time, I noticed there was a little bit of black mold underneath the brick and on the bamboo underneath the brick. Is that something that's kind of normal and just soap and water to clean that, or would you worry about trying to get something that's going to be more aggressive, like a chlorine or something, to try to get rid of it?
Oh yeah, yeah. So sometimes there can be a little bit of trap. Do you have the Classico maybe?
Yeah, I think I have the classic. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes that's like what Kerry has.
Well, and
Yeah,
you
oh
can
yeah.
see there, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
And I wiped it off with a paper towel, but I didn't want to be too aggressive just so I could share it. And then there's something very similar on the inside of the grotto underneath where that was.
Yeah. So like
I
sometimes
can
because,
answer that, Jessica, if you want.
oh yeah, go for it. Tell.
Yeah, I before I loaded this for the experiment or just in general, I do the vinegar wash. So it's 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water. And usually I use like a filtered water. And because I've noticed we're on well and that sometimes our well water will grow some unhappy things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let to sit, discovered that, glasses get a little slimy sometimes. But so I use filtered water just to kind of set the standard,
So
and
you soak it and filter then too?
yep, I soak it in filtered when I go to do the soak before it goes back in. But I definitely like I said, it's kind of humid in our house, so I air dry it for longer than recommended. And so just that vinegar wash on the interior, put the brick in that vinegar wash also. You can soak that up for like up to 10 minutes, depending how aggressive this mold is. And then so is you're just basically starting at ground zero then when you go to put things back in. And the brick, sometimes I'll like kind of keep sniffing it as it's drying from the vinegar wash, just to be knowledgeable as to how much of that is evaporating off, because I don't
Right.
want cheese to taste like vinegar either. And eventually it does evaporate off. And so I can't say, like it'll take 5 days. You just got to use your senses in that regard. But anytime I load my grotto with new cheeses, I wash it out and do the vinegar wash.
So do you know what tar sand is? Would you use tar sand instead of vinegar?
No,
Oh,
I don't know what that is.
it's a sanitizer for beer making and things. So
Okay. I haven't used it, but I think some of the commercial grade sanitizers might be a little too much.
okay. Yeah.
Like, the 3 part thing at work, and
Yeah, it's not to that level.
okay. But yeah, vinegar like cleans all
Okay.
my floors, everything.
I'm muted. I forgot. I just wanted to spotlight so you could show the branded part of the back because I think it's so
Oh,
cool. But it says 2016 on it. Yeah.
17.
So
Or 17.
since we're looking at the back, how do you manage the airflow, right? And you've got the slide there.
Yeah.
When do you decide to have it open and when do you decide to have it closed?
I base that on what my hygrometer is reading.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have 2 of them in here just because. And
You really need three because if you have two, you don't know which one's wrong.
exactly. So I bought, the one from because actually they're reading quite similar at the
Yeah.
moment. Good. Because they can be very different. Do you know if they
Hmm.
can be calibrated? I wish I knew. I kind of Googled that and then I walked away. But so I use the hygrometer like over winter. We're down at like 25% humidity in this house. And everything's flaking off.
So what's your goal?
Over 80.
Over 80, okay.
Yeah, over 80 is my goal. If you're doing like a soft ripened cheese, a brie or camembert, those caves are quite often held at close to 100%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's like I've been in some that were at about 97% humidity.
Okay, so for soft ripen, go higher than 80.
Yeah, I would go higher if you can always. I've done like especially in the winter, I've done 2 soaked bricks in here because we're just combating our atmospheric
Right,
conditions here in
right.
Minnesota. So yeah, I just keep an eye on it that way. It's another good way to regulate. This gold one is from Cheese Grotto. I'm looking at myself in reverse.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like if the humidity's a little too low, it just you can notice because it'll get like just a little bit denser in
Yeah, I
the
have a bunch of these for guitar, so I just throw one in and
Okay,
that
there
works
you
oh
fine.
go.
yeah. But I mean that's the tricky bit because it is really informed, especially when it's out of the fridge. Like then it's like informed by like the climate a little bit more.
And you
Yeah.
can see how different it is for me between the 76 was in the grotto and the other one's just atmospheric. So it was definitely working.
Okay.
Yeah, it's already coming up. Yeah, it's yeah, we have some people that are like hobbyist cheesemakers, and I've built them out bigger ones so that they can like regulate the humidity more easily because that's kind of one of the main challenges for hobbyist cheesemakers where they just like can't it's like hard to regulate that in like refrigerated systems. So,
Right.
yeah.
Or you can just get a wine fridge.
Oh yeah.
Because that keeps it at the cave temperature, basically.
Do you keep yours in the wine fridge?
I have for larger events. I'll pop it in there. I just have to do battle with all the wine that my husband has in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's more like the cave aging
Mhm.
experience is that wine. Usually like we'll build them out for like the inside of a wine fridge. Like we're doing one right now for
Oh,
someone that's like half wine, half, and then putting in like a grotto for the other half,
oh,
which is
sweet.
fun. Yeah. Um, but yeah, we have a few. I wish my blog was easier to navigate, but I can send some follow-up links if you're interested in any of that or just want to look at it. But yeah, so we have some cheesemakers or hobbyist cheesemakers we've highlighted that like use it
So
that way.
with those, do you still use the bricks or do you use something else to regulate humidity?
Still the bricks, yeah. I mean, the main thing, which I didn't mention yet, actually, is that the humidity, the more cheese is in there, the more humid it will become.
Right.
And if you have like a green, like a cheese, they call it green cheese, not actually green, but just like super
Right.
fresh, like just made wheel, it'll be higher water content because that as it ages, it's going to lose water. So
Hmm.
even that in and of itself is going to bring up the humidity of the grotto uh, a lot more. So that's like sometimes with the Classico, it's tricky because it's bigger. So if you have like a tiny piece of cheese in there and nothing else, then it's you might see it change a little more quickly, like get a little more cured or like
Hmm.
dried just because it's not boosted by like a bunch of different things in there. So, but yeah. The smaller ones are a little bit easier, like not as big, and not as many tools, but like a little bit more like you just put the brick in and like it maintains it a little bit more for longer periods because of the volume space, if that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun to talk about this.
I just did the fresco for just space alone, but and I did the soap resin boards because it just seemed like that was a little less maintenance than worrying about the wood ones.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, that's also so we have like I had one of them I had the blackboard, which is like, oh, great, look at this. Just ready to go. The one of them was is the blackboard, which um I really like that because it's like made out of recycled paper and tree resin, and it's like basically the eco-friendly version of corian and is like dishwasher safe. And you can't break it. Like you literally could like throw it like out of your window, like down multiple flights, and it would probably be fine. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you could. Um, and yeah, it's really a dishwasher safe. It comes with the chalk so you can write on it. So that's like a little because it's non-porous. It's a little bit like, just easier for everyday storage. But I did do the other one with the bamboo too, um and Kerry did hers with bamboo. So it's definitely I just find for people who like are more of like a set it and forget it, like the black shelving is nice because it's like, oops, I forgot about it for like 3 weeks. Like I don't, it's a little bit less work for sure. But
I also like it aesthetically. It really
yeah.
shows off the
Mm,
cheese.
it does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah, we're like almost out of stock. I just ordered a bunch more to make shelves, so I'm very excited to have them back. But it's more expensive material, so that's yeah, always the you know you get a better, cool, awesome material, and then of course it costs more. It's American made, which is cool, like the whole thing. from start to finish is American, and that's incredibly rare. So I like that part about it. But yeah, so maybe I will move spotlight unless. Oh yeah, did you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, talk just a little bit more about your cheese subscription service. You have two different ones and kind of talk about those a little bit and how they compare and etc.
Yeah, totally. I know. It's like sometimes I'm like, are the two? It's like so it's like more options. But there are but I do really love them both, but they are a little bit different in what they're showcasing. So the Meet the Makers program is a quarterly program. It's on a fixed schedule and it features one cheesemaker per box. So we feature four different cheeses from one maker. And we do things like the Zoom with the cheesemaker, which is awesome. Like to get like they will go to like sometimes they're able to like get into the cheese making room or like go to where the cows are and like do like a virtual tour live, which is really cool. Sometimes the Wi-Fi doesn't work that way and you end up in like the cheesemaker's home talking, but that's also like to be interesting, like just seeing how they're living. Um but yeah, it's really and I feel like it's been very rewarding for me and I think for the cheesemakers and people joining because the cheesemakers don't get off the farm that much. And so it's kind of a special moment for them to connect with people. And yeah, and I don't think most people get that exposure in general. So like it's just being connected with the actual person that made your food is really wish it was not as rare, but it's hopefully that'll change at some point. But um, so that's, I love that. And we, curate, it's all like everything we do is like small to medium scale. But you do see varying scales of production, varying stories. Like, we might have a team of two versus like a team of like 20, of people. So it's, you get to see kind of all these different scales within that. And then the monthly subscription is more like theme oriented, where we highlight three different makers three different styles and then like you can add pairings and like crackers to that one so you can have it be more of like a cheese board pairing tasting experience. And Kerry and I are talking about starting a Zoom for that too because I feel like it's always beneficial to do them. So something similar where we walk through, Kerry builds the board and I'll walk through why I sourced like the story behind the sourcing of all the cheeses and the pairings. And so yeah, we got to get on that. Hopefully we're
I
gonna
didn't know
start
I
doing
was
that.
building a board. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I thought I mentioned
Okay.
that, but maybe
No.
um yeah, I don't know. Your kitchen's beautiful. I feel like it's a spot to do it. But yeah, I think that's something hopefully we're gonna get started in June. So just around the bend. But yeah, we did like a good we got some good information from folks. Like we did a little survey not that long ago. So um but yeah, love them all. It's really that's what the story is.
Great, thank you.
Who
Yeah.
has a subscription? Does anyone on the call have a cheese subscription?
I have the quarterly one right now.
Okay.
I didn't do the monthly yet, but I probably will just because I'm kind of in between houses right now and wasn't sure when it would show up and if I'd be there to get it, so I didn't want to risk that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can always be tricky. We rely so heavily on the people carrying the packages.
Yes.
Um, it's I've noticed that the more Christmas cookies I give them, the better they are at delivering.
Yeah. Yeah. The one nice thing is you can edit those things as you go and you have to remember that's the one thing. You have to remember to switch it, but there's also ability to skip months. Like you can just go in and be like,
So I think the next quarterly one's going out here soon, is that right?
yeah, that one's in July. I think it's gonna be I think after July's one, we're gonna switch it so that we're doing no more during like the hot months, just so that it's a little
Got it.
bit easier shipping wise, but we will focus on Roth cheese in July, which they are bigger, but they have a really, really interesting story, and we're getting like their woman cheesemaker to join and talk them. There's not as many women cheesemakers, so it'll be interesting to have her on. And then like there's one of them just like won the Search just won I think it's I'm trying to think which awards it just won, but it got a really high rating and won competition recently. And then like there's a smaller production one that I never had before that we're going to be featuring in there too. The Canella, which is kind of like it's kind of like a manchego actually, that's like rubbed with like a paprika on the exterior.
That'll
But
be cool. I think I had cannella at the fancy food show one time.
yeah.
And it's a Wisconsin maker.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, like let us know if you have any other questions or thoughts, but yeah, it's really great to meet you on Zoom and connect. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your support with everything I'm doing too. It's, it's a growing industry and growing interest, and so it's just fun to meet everyone. Yeah, and hopefully we'll do another one. We will do another one soon. We're gonna have to get that on the calendar, and we'll have see you maybe at the quarterly in July. So
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
yes, you too. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you for your time.
Oh yes, thank you for yours. Really appreciate it. So,
Thank you, folks.
oh yeah, recording stop.